Do. Push the button, Jimmy. And happy Tuesday to you, Breakfast Club PT on March 19th. We're doing this twice a week now, even when Jimmy realizes it's Tuesday, about 11 minutes before we go live. That's how Tuesdays work. He's Dave Kittle. That's Tony Maritato in the middle. I'm Jimmy McKay. And welcome to our stream. I think I like the fact that it's called a live stream because we bring some topics, but it really is a stream of consciousness. We don't know what we think about some of these topics that we bring up until we just bring them up.
That's right. We never know what's on people's mind.
Yeah. All right. So what is on tap first? See what I did there? It's like a radio segue. What's on tap?
Last week we talked about CIs. Should CIs get paid? Who should be paying CIs? I want to add into that conversation, should students get paid, right? Because the argument I always hear is the student is free labor. The student is coming and increasing production. The student is generating revenue, which probably illegal / unethical. We can talk about that. Right. But, so there's a lot of moving parts in this whole question. And I know, you guys would know, everybody would know who brought this up a couple years ago.
Was it a person or a school or an organization?
He was part of PT on Ice or
Jeff Moore.
Yes, Jeff Moore had a great, might have been Twitter or some post talking about should CIs get paid. I found it when I was researching the topic.
What was his take?
I think he thought they should. I mean, I think any reasonable, logical, no offense person should understand that if you want a great CI, if you want a great educational experience, if you want somebody that's going to go above and beyond to put an amazing clinical experience in front of a student, they should get paid, compensated, because they're going to take a whole lot of time above their normal caseload.
But who is the payer? We need to figure this out right now as well. So this is a lot like the students already have loan debt. The clinics could arguably pay because they have the free labor. I think it was on the clinic side, but then again, you could look at the institutions and say, hey, these big institutions, they've been raising their tuitions for 10 whatever years with DPTs and all that, adding masters, adding, DPT, adding, the 7th year of schooling or whatever. It makes more business sense for the clinics to pay, but these institutions aren't hurting. So, I would be fine if the institutions paid.
Well, the CI is getting paid, but they're not getting paid to take a student. They're not getting paid extra to take a student.
Not getting paid extra for the extra duties and responsibilities. Yeah.
So I was going to say this is a triangle, but then Dave brings up this is more like a parallelogram. So you have the student who is this was always funny, right? Because you have to know the characters of the game you're playing. The student is simultaneously paying a lot of money and the person doing a lot of work. So they are the customer and getting told what to do the most, which was unique the second time around when I was in school. It's like being told like you can't do a clinical rotation there or whatever. And I'm being like, I am the one paying, right? Like I can't, I'm not saying I have to drive the bus completely, but I can't have any say in this. Like this feels a little odd. So you have the student who is paying the university or the school. You have the school who is building relationships with clinical sites and vice versa. And then the clinical site also employs PT who then they have to have a CCI, credentialed clinical instructor. They have to be credentialed, which is a course that I believe APTA puts out or someone. You like how I come prepared, right? Both of you are nodding at me like I know what I'm talking about.
I can fill this part in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I remember I did go through a certification. It was something I did online. Yeah, it's super simple. I mean, it's bare bones. It's not anything that's going to make you a good CI, And back to Jimmy's point about who's getting what, who's paying whom. I also like to flip the paradigm and look at it as, well, who's buying what? Yeah. Who's getting the benefit? If I'm approaching this as a practice owner, which historically, I think most practice owners approach it this way, you say, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice. I'm willing to take on that student, take on that burden in exchange for the hopes that it's going to be a good one. And I'm going to be able to recruit that individual to come on as a therapist who's going to generate a profit margin for me for the next 1 to 3 years. Right. So in that case, the practice owner is going to foot the bill. They're going to pay their CIs, their employed therapists, to teach those kids. But the students still paying their tuition. Students obviously still paying for housing and other stuff. Now, Justin Stiver down in Florida, he's got a deal where he's buying real estate to create housing for students to become more attractive so that students are more likely to come to his clinical location. But in exchange for that, he's also interviewing students. He's adding friction to the system so that he's not getting stuck. And I mean, we know there are some duds out there. We know there are some students that just, they don't want to be in your environment. They're not interested. It's not why they're going to PT school. Yeah. So to get a student who's stuck in outpatient orthopedic when they really want to do inpatient neuro, it's not helping anybody. No. I really think probably we could take a lesson from NIL. And NIL, the name, image, likeness, that came into the college scene a couple years ago. This is on my radar because I just heard about these twins that are making millions a year, basically on social media, and how their dad talked them into thinking about this as a 40-year plan and not a 4-year plan because they're college basketball players at Miami. But the idea is, you know, these kids were students, student athletes making millions and millions of dollars for the universities, right, weren't allowed to make any money for themselves. And now all of a sudden they have a platform where they can monetize TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, and they're making millions on brand deals. And then that trickles down into high school kids, and that trickles down potentially into middle school, elementary school kids. I think this is uncharted territory for our profession. So if we look outside of what we're arguing about and say, well, what models are out there? What can we learn from? I think looking up, researching, which is what I'm doing now, NIL could be a great place to start. How can we get students the money they need? How can we get practice owners the outcome or the money they need to make everything work?
Yeah. Alyssa points out, I just want to make sure some hospitals will pay CI's preceptor pay, as they do for nursing staff, et cetera. So I guess that's like CI pay. I'm guessing preceptor.
That's great.
It sounds Latin, which means it comes from education or something like that. Yeah.
So Tony hit it right on the head. Everything that Justin Stiver is doing is genius. I think at the end of the day, the students, a lot of them historically will get the shaft. Like they're already taking out money for tuition. However, things like Justin is doing will allow certain students, arguably like similar to the name, image, and likeness, the NIL, like the ones that make the most money and get the most deals or whatever, are either going to be the top performing or the most notable, or they have some online recognition, or they have some other tangible or intangible value or whatever. But if you bring that to the table and you want to potentially do a rotation with Justin's practice, and Justin reaches out to these DPT schools and he says, you know, hey, we have free room, not room and board, but just room for these students. And we would love to offer it to your DPT program. And then the only stipulation is that we're going to do phone or Zoom interviews with some of these like fourth year or, you know, fourth rotation students that are almost ready to graduate. So they have more training, more knowledge, more experience, all that. He plugs them into the clinic, but they get free room, but it's via passing his, you know, interview and screening and all that. Yeah. And that's great. A comment on the NIL real quick is that I saw something online not too long ago that either it was from a sports agent or maybe one of these athletic directors at one of these schools. And apparently a lot of these NIL deals, the dollar amounts that Tony just referred to, and I know the twins you're talking about, I think they were the two female twins that played in Miami, and now maybe they're going to some other school or whatever. Apparently a lot of these NIL numbers, the deals, are grossly inflated because it allows them to have better negotiation for the next deal and the next deal and the next deal for the next collaboration or whatever. Take that as you will. But at the same time, historically, the past, I don't know, 20, 30 years, a lot of these big time athletes, like when Shaq was in high school or whatever, like they were getting, you know, free bags of money. They were getting stuff under the table and all of that. So, you know, again, the cream rises to the top. The top performers, the most, you know, arguably, quote unquote, the most valuable athletes or students or whatever, they might get some side deals, but maybe not trust all these numbers that we're seeing. I don't know.
This is a value shift. This is life, right? Matter cannot be created or destroyed. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. Just moves around, right? So you have if you're a university, you have leverage because you tell people where they can go. Some schools you can pick, and some schools you have a little bit of pick. And then if you're a clinical site, you can say, I want to be able to pick, and the school can say, well, if you don't take it our first years, we're not going to give you any third years. So this is a leverage thing. Because listen, I got to place 3 years worth of students or 2 years worth of students. So if you're not going to take my first years, I'm going to punish you by not giving you any third years, because they understand this is a recruiting thing and this is a positive, these there are benefits. And meanwhile, the students are the ones, in my opinion, they are the thing being negotiated for, and they are the thing paying. So they are funding and fueling. Ooh, look, we got 2 F's there, funding and fueling. So they are the energy and they are the matter. So should they get paid? Should clinical instructors get paid? I don't know. I mean, yeah, everybody should be. If you're providing value, you should get value, right? But also, some people are clinical instructors because they're like, hey, I really like doing this. I think it's a value add to my profession. I've talked with people who are 3-5 years out, who are now feeling like there's a milestone in their career where they're like, I mean, 3 to 5 years is a long time, but also not a long time. They're like, I'm taking a student. I remember what it was like when I was a student just 3 to 5 years ago. That's great. Some would say you should be, a PT for 5-10 years before you take a student. I don't know if that's true. Maybe you're too far away to remember what that student's like. So so should they get paid? Everybody who provides value should get value.
Yeah, and back to the, should the CI get paid? I know I brought up NIL as the students getting paid, but I think it applies to the CI just as much. When I was accepting students, I would document, we talked about this last week, I would throw a camera on, I would record myself teaching the student. One of my best performing short videos is me talking to a student while I'm the CI. I'm mobilizing a post-surgical total knee replacement patient's knee. And I'm explaining to the student, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. This is what she should feel. This is what I should feel. And I took that and put it live on YouTube, and it's done, multiple thousands of views and generated revenue. And so the CI, if you're good at what you're doing, and if you have something truly unique to deliver, you will always be able to monetize that value. Yeah. I love the quote, shocking, more than 50% of PTs are below average. Well, yeah, right. That's true. Like, that's basic statistics. But I definitely think the CI should earn more the better they are. The question, like Jimmy said, is who's going to pay it? It's either going to be the public, it's going to be the social media platforms, it's going to be the owner of the business if they're using that CI to generate new leads, new referrals for hiring therapists. And at the same token, there is no chance universities are going to pay anything to put students in clinical sites unless basic supply demand, unless those clinical sites stop taking students. Right. We stopped taking students years ago. Breaks my heart. I love students. I love being a CI. It makes me a better clinician when I have to teach those lessons to somebody who's never seen that before. And I feel like being a CI gives me a chance to break a lot of horrible, bad advice and bad habits that students come in with. I just saw this ridiculous video on an Instagram page that has millions of followers, where a guy has clearly a geriatric individual with a little bit of an anterior pelvic tilt. And he's like, see this? This is an anterior pelvic tilt. This is why you have back pain. Yeah. And he puts this poor lady up against the wall, trying to get her to do posterior pelvic tilt to, quote, stop her back pain, and tries to make her keep that position while she's walking through space. It was honestly sickening. But that being said, we need to balance that message.
So Will Boyd commenting, he would be somewhere. We gotta get Will on this on live stream. He 100% clinical instructors should get paid, but also on a performance basis, right? Value for value. Why should the bottom 10% get the same as the top 10%? Will remembers having a few CIs who weren't interested in training me, but using me to lighten their load. I will not call out what organization it was, but it was a large physical therapy organization in the area that I was a PT school. And day one, it was instructed upon me, you're pretty, you're good. I've hung out with you for an hour and a half, so you need no instruction. So I got the message on day one that what I was there for. And I think many PT students are, but I was also second career. So I was also like, okay, I understand what this is, but I could imagine, and I'm not like looking down on 25-year-olds, but like, I don't know, like They're there to be taught, and that just felt wrong to hear.
Dave, what's going on with TikTok?
Oof, TikTok.
I didn't put. Did I put TikTok?
Oh, Jimmy did. What's going on?
Well, because you mentioned TikTok, but like they're going to ban TikTok, which I think is, or the idea is to ban TikTok, which I think is interesting. What is the deal? Is it about the data we're nervous about because TikTok is Chinese owned, and I'm gleaning this, right? So now we're going to ban TikTok because we don't know what they're doing with the data, which is also I don't know what they're doing with this live stream right now. I'm just talking into a camera to you guys.
And part of the sentiment is that I think some of the senators or congressmen and women believe that China would not allow this type of a U.S. platform in their country too. So that's another part of it.
I know, but aren't we better than that? Like, isn't that the idea? Is like we're like, just because they're super restrictive doesn't mean we're super restrictive. But like where this comes to play is like this is a channel that people have based businesses on, and now we're going to decide we're just going to shut it down.
So on that, whether it's any other platform, like that's business. Like if you built some business on TikTok and you didn't collect emails and you don't have a YouTube account or YouTube channel or whatever, and it just goes away, none of us want to see you cry. Go start a business somewhere else. Go on Instagram. Do whatever. Like I don't want to hear any, especially in the US, any of our teenagers or whoever. Anyway, if you're selling T-shirts, whatever, you're doing content, and all of a sudden your million followers or whatever is gone, and now you no longer have that fire hose. Yeah, that's business.
This is where I tell people. I was talking to someone the other day who has a large following on one platform and is now launching a podcast. And I won't say who this is, but you'll see me promoting their stuff because they're going to be great. And then she's like, "But how do I monetize this down the road?" And I said, I looked right at her in the Zoom screen. I did this ready to intend. You don't monetize the podcast. And she was like, "But I don't." I said, "You're going to build a relationship, and then you're going to monetize that relationship a couple different ways. So you can charge your audience. I don't do that. I'm very forthright about my podcast, right? I don't charge the audience to listen. I don't charge guests to be on the show. Everything's just sort of an exchange of time. But what do we know about time? Time is money. There we go. So there are organizations out there that are like, oh, I would love to be in front of this subsect of humans. And how did Jimmy know that? It was one of my first CSMs, and I was standing in the exhibit hall. I'm spinning around like Julie Andrews and The Sound of Music going, oh my gosh, look at all these companies. They would love to be in people's ears. I want to be in people's ears. How do I leverage that? So you get 16,000 people at CSM every year. Companies pay to be in front of some of them. Right, some of them, you're not in front of 16,000 people. You're in front of a couple hundred a day at best. They stop by, they grab your pen, whatever. They give you your email address, and they pay lots of money. And I was like, well, I'm going to be in someone's ear 365 days a year, not just these 3 days at CSM. That's how you leverage it. So yes, so I think it's a shame, but I'm not arguing should we ban TikTok or not. I wanted to use this for what Dave was just talking about, which is you can cry about it, but it's going to go away. I mean, Gary Vee's been super smart. People have been telling you this for years. It caused me, Dave signed up for my newsletter, which I need to fix the thank you page on apparently. But it caused me to go, hey, maybe I need to bump this up a little bit because like Twitter's dropped off for me in the last couple of years since I think there's a new guy running Twitter. And I built a big following on there because I like the platform, not because I wanted to build a following. I just like the interacting, which is probably why it was successful, right? Why is my Instagram not as successful? Because I don't really use it. I don't really love it as much. So that should be your wake up call, which is you don't monetize your business. You don't monetize on a platform. You monetize your relationship with people. How can you stay connected to those people? If it's a TikTok follow that has good value until it goes away, and then you can't talk to her.
Now, and without getting too political, some of the sentiment also from what I've kind of heard or observed is that both sides of the aisle, we're going to just stay neutral right now. Both sides of the aisle also believes, and maybe they don't want to say it, but if TikTok were banned, I believe, and they believe, or I think they believe, that now Facebook would immediately get stronger and more powerful. So whatever that means to you and your situation, but the congressmen and women might be saying like, we got to ban TikTok, but then they also will be interrogating Zuckerberg. Like it just happened a month or two ago or fairly recently where they're like, grilling Mark Zuckerberg like crazy. So it's like, you could ban TikTok and then Facebook's probably going to get a lot stronger. And if you keep TikTok here and not meddle with it, then maybe you can kind of neutralize Facebook a little bit. I don't know.
Wow.
Right. I mean, it's all shifting value, right? There's a guy on Instagram who just follows people in politics, their stock buys, and he buys what they buy. And surprisingly, so yeah, if you shut this one down, where is everybody going to go?
Yeah. Yep. Is your audience built on rented land? I'll talk about that because I don't know anything about the politics or the news. But it's the same thing right now. Google is going through a major update, core algorithm update, and a couple other updates, and I see my traffic get cut in half. Oof. But I kind of knew Google, YouTube, Facebook. We saw it in Facebook years ago where they cut organic reach, and if you wanted to get to people, you had to pay to get to people. So my approach is always multi-system. It's just like we do with the patient in physical therapy. None of us would ever just focus on one system of the body exclusively. I'm only going to work on this one thing. We do a little bit of this. We do a little bit of that. We try to bring everything up together. It's slower progress for sure, but it's more balanced and more stable. So when one leg gets cut, we have something else to rely on. Yeah. So for me, I knew, great success on, and Dave, thanks for the shout out about growing Choose PT First. But even with the success that site had, I knew that I still had to build a platform on Pinterest, on LinkedIn, leverage YouTube, leverage the other platforms, because I have no idea. I don't own that land. Yeah. I'm borrowing that platform. They're kind enough to let me share my message for free until they're not going to let me share it for free.
Or they throttle it, right? I mean, even I can see with AI soon them paying attention to what videos are being put on YouTube. And if you have sponsored content in there, maybe you have to pay a creator license to share on YouTube. I can see that happening because there's also there's an option in there to say, hey, listen, check this box if there's sponsored content, which I have to check because there is sponsored content. And I don't want to, anger the gods because they don't really tell you how the rules operate. They just sort of give you guidelines and you're supposed to abide by those things. And I want to be on the good side. Like you weren't supposed to be able to live stream to Instagram with a third-party app, and now you can. But there were ways around it, and people got caught, and then their accounts were just wiped clean. I mean, there's a pretty big PT Instagram guy. I just had him on the show, Tom Walters, Rehab Science. He's got 1 million followers on Instagram, and then his Facebook got hacked, and now he can't get it back. Like, it just shows you, like, you are the product. If you aren't paying, you are the product. You are supplying. I mean, we talked about this with CapCut. TikTok wanted more videos. They wanted more videos, better videos. So they made an app called CapCut that made making dope videos super easy. And so that's brilliant. I mean, similar to what Tony just shared too about the CEO of Ford. Like, it's a smart way. Like, talk about that.
Who brought that up? I didn't.
You did. The CEO of Ford having a podcast called Drive.
No, so that was me. So when I work out, I typically will use Spotify. And one of the Spotify ads that came up was saying, like the CEO of Ford, what's the name? Something Farley, it has a podcast called Drive. And I thought, like, I didn't look into numbers or whatever. I listened to it a little bit. I posed it to you guys in the shared chat or the Google sheet. It's like, I don't know what he makes, but the CEO of Ford probably makes, I don't know, like several million dollars a year.
Yeah.
So my question to you guys would be, like, so obviously, like, first of all, if you're the CEO of Ford and you're like, the team is proposing, like, as the CEO, hey, you should be on this, we should make a podcast. Obviously he's obsessed with cars and he's probably obsessed with Ford cars. What is and I think it's something Jimmy just said a few minutes ago, which is like it's like building an audience, and you're not going to monetize it directly. Maybe they're going to talk about maybe some of their new models or whatever. But like when Jimmy historically has done work with other companies, the companies are like, yeah, we want to do a video content on like why you should work at blank rehab or whatever. And Jimmy's like, no, we want to talk about like PTs, OTs and whatever. And you get, like, by osmosis, you get the reputation, but not like the direct, like, cold.
That's an ad.
Advertisement. Yeah, the ad.
It's an ad. If okay, so I have never heard about this podcast, but okay, pretend, Tony, you're the CEO of Ford. Dave and I are your, like, PR people. We're press relations, right? So you're a CEO of Ford, and his name is what? Farley? Mr. Farley, we have a crazy idea. You love cars. You're always talking about cars. That's why you run a car company. We think we want to put you in front of the world sharing your knowledge and insight. And you're like, okay, well, why? Right? Probably as a good CEO, why am I going to give some of my time for this? And you're like, we're going to launch a podcast. We're going to talk about cars. Here's 20 sample topics that we're going to riff on, right? And then the mistake, in my opinion, would be we only talk about Fords. And I would be like, that monumental mistake, because the show needs to be about cars and what's new. And if something new comes out and you don't talk about it because it's a Toyota or the new type of clutch, or are we all going EV or what's the whatever, and you keep talking about it from a Ford angle, people smell it. And they're like, this is a big giant ad, man. I'm not being entertained or educated by this. Now, you win even if you never talk about Fords, in my opinion, because they're listening to your show. This was similar, not the same. I pitched a podcast to a professor in 2015, and we're coming up on 9 years. That's insane to me. And I said to my professors, 2 of them who I loved, and they had a lot of great ideas. I said, Sky, Jason, I want to have you on the podcast. And they both said no. And I was like, but they were very supportive of the show. And I was like, why not? If you just come out of the gate interviewing your teachers, it's going to be, the people are just going to see it as a student interviewing their teachers. Go. So they wouldn't come on the show until I hit episode 100. So I would say, as the CEO, I would say this is an entertainment and education vehicle. See what I did there? Called Drive. And I would say it's brilliant to do, even if you never talk about Fords.
And I think what it does is it humanizes the brand.
Yes.
I was just talking to a physical therapist that reached out to me because he's publishing video content. He's not getting as much views, as much engagement as he wants. So I said, well, let me go check it out. And I'm like, you have multiple channels on the same platform. And he said, well, I'm testing whether I should do it through the company, through personal. I was like, stop. No, it should all be personal. We want to hear from a human. There's more than enough companies. And I think a company like Ford, GM, Honda, they've been around for decades. We want to humanize those brands, but even on a smaller basis, so Amy McMillan's in one of my Facebook groups. She's been working like crazy to grow her Treat Dizziness at Home YouTube channel. And she's at 2,600 subscribers. She's got about 368 videos on the channel, but she hasn't reached the monetization level for YouTube. But she posted the other day that she's doing 3 educational consultations, paid educational consultations for people that have reached out to her through the YouTube channel. So even if it's a small community, a small tribe, it is a passionate tribe, and they're willing to pay for the services and the information that you have.
Yep. I changed all my social after paying attention to somebody I read online. I changed all my logos on my social platforms from this, which is the podcast logo, still on, Apple and iTunes like this. I put my face on it. Because if you look to who has more followers, Tim Cook or Apple, who do you think?
I guess it's Tim Cook.
Yeah, it's Tim Cook. I wouldn't ask if it would, unless it's supported by
layup.
But who has more followers, the Dallas Mavericks or Mark Cuban? Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban, yeah.
People connect with people. It's not to say we don't want to follow brands or be inspired by brands or find out what brands are doing, but having worked on the side of brands, it's the messaging can't be as real. It can't be as quick. It's not as deep, right? We've got to think about, well, would the brand say this? Should the brand say this? Yada, yada, yada. So that was the idea. Dave, what are we talking about?
Yes, the next thing we'll segue into, I posted something. Actually, this was a very, scrolled by tweet as my follow-up tweet. Put this on Twitter. I don't know if you want to pull it up or if I can share the screen. There we go. So I came across this in Brooklyn. So this is like, if you got a parking ticket, you call this company, got a ticket. It's got the phone number. It's got a tagline. It kind of looks like a pseudo cop car, but obviously like,
Nice.
Different colors and a bright orange and a bright like bluish purple, whatever. It catches my eye. And I tweeted this the other day. Is this branding or marketing or both?
Is it branding or marketing? Oh, it's both. I mean, I think it's both.
Why would you call this branding?
Because this whole company, if you live in Brooklyn, this is going to be the people you look for. This is the Roto-Rooter of getting a ticket. Like if you're stuck, these are the people who unstuck you. And then marketing is, there it is. It's eye-catching. There's the phone number. I mean, start with a problem, got a ticket. It hits you on an emotional level. We can all feel what that feels like.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be memorable. You know, as soon as I saw this, it reminded me. So I grew up on Siesta Key down in Sarasota, Florida. One of the Siesta Key residents was a guy. I'm going to try to say his last name. First name Gary. He's a chiropractor. Last name Compothecris, something along those lines. Anyway, he started 1-800-ASK Gary. He had basically the same wrapped vans. He put together this network of attorneys and chiropractors and medical professionals. I've heard that they were doing multiple millions a year across this network. I think that's where he grew his wealth. Later, his son got involved with MTV and they brought The Real World, or one of the MTV shows, to Siesta Key. Actually, I think they called it Siesta Key.
Yeah.
But anyway, I remember he had commercials everywhere. 1-800-ASK Gary. It was totally burned into your psyche. Like, that was a brand around 1-800-ASK Gary, like 1-800-Flowers or any of those things. You know, it just, they put so much money behind it. And you pretty much knew. Like, I don't think anybody was calling 1-800-ASK Gary who wasn't just looking for a financial settlement, who wasn't just looking to get money out of it. And the argument from an ethical perspective with therapists was, look, if you're not actively marketing your tiny physical therapy practice, that's going to probably do a better job and take care of these individuals who got into a car accident. If you're not competing with 1-800-ASK Gary, you're doing those patients a disservice,
right?
Because the only thing they know is that brand. And you are not even on the radar if you don't get out there, market yourself. And of course, anybody who does personal injury, you know that there's massive, massive money behind it. Usually you're getting your full bill rate. There are therapists getting $300 a session if they get to MedPay first, you know, because it's paying on a first come, first serve basis. Patrick Toy has a ton of content out there about working in that world of personal injury, auto accidents. But yeah, that definitely a brand. As soon as I saw that wrap, I was like, these guys are building a brand.
I work with people and companies who are mad. I mean, you know, mostly in healthcare, who are mad when disinformation spreads. And I'm like, we got a couple of choices here, Chief. We can get angry in Zoom meetings together that no one else hears, right? We can do nothing, which we've already tried that. That's not working. We can go tell mom, which is like, report the post. I got news for you. It's not going to slow them down. It's actually going to prove that it's working. Or we can go create better information. And I would say you are, in a white paper, Dale Avers a while ago said underdosing geriatric patients is tantamount to malpractice. Right. And I'd say geriatric patients are often underdosed because we don't want to hurt them because they're frail and they're old and look like my grandma. I would say that's a gigantic disservice, and why, you know better as a doctor of physical therapy, you need to appropriately dose them. Right. I would say the same thing goes with education. Right. That's what doctor actually comes from, is education. Like, we are to educate. I would say by not doing it, and you can get better at it because everybody starts as awful with this thing. I had a rage, education moment the other day where I did a screenshot of a paper and I said, this is not the way to share your research. I'm very sorry, researchers, but I can't see what that. I kept using the GIF from Costanza from Seinfeld where he's just like squinting. I'm like, no one can read this and your science doesn't spread. I know it feels like look, I shared it. People know. They don't. You have to explain it to me simply. Explain it as you would. Maybe it's coming full circle. As you would to a student. You wouldn't just screenshot a research paper to a student and hand it to him and be like, good luck at understanding that. So I would say it is your professional duty to educate potential patients or the public on this.
I do want to keep talking about branding because I want to bring it around to Liquid Death. But before we do, I'm curious with Dave, dosing geriatrics in particular, like you and I are kind of both in that world. I remember coming out as a new grad. I had a strength coach background. I had my CSCS through NASM, and I had been working with an Olympic lifting group down in South Florida, Team Florida. Everything was about appropriate dosing and tracking volumes and how you're taxing the athlete and recovery. And I thought, awesome, I'm going to bring this into geriatrics. And I can't even count how many people in the beginning either quit coming to therapy or came back mad because I, quote, injured them, hurt them, made them worse because I thought I was dosing appropriately. Now, I think when we throw that out there, because I hear it a lot, a lot of people interpret it as, well, of course, I need to have either I'm working on hypertrophy, I'm working on power, I'm working on strength, I need to be in these rep ranges, or I need to be in these intensity levels. But we're doing that absent the psychology of the individual, And so I did it. I heard a million people when I first started as a therapist. And then my wife came in, who had been a physical therapist for a long time, but she made the transition from mostly inpatient acute care to outpatient orthopedic. She was fit. She was an athlete. She played ball in college, and she was like, oh, well, these people are coming. They want to get better. I'm going to dose them appropriately. They never wanted to come back because the DOM set in. They realized how out of shape they were. They realized how far they had fallen behind. So what do you think, Dave? I mean, you're working with a high-end clientele. You're working with a motivated clientele. They're paying to get better. They're obviously invested in their health and their wellness. But have you been in that situation where you overdo it, knowing that this is really the dose they need, but it's not the dose they want?
Absolutely. So what I've learned over time, like you said, kind of through trial and error, and folks that have too much soreness or they get discouraged because they realize like maybe how weak they are or whatever, you collect the most information with the subjective, with speaking to them up front. Maybe they used to go to the Y, they used to go to the gym, or they tried a personal trainer, or they went to some other physical therapy or whatever. And you got to ask, like, how did it go? And what did you love about it? And what did you not like about it or whatever? And they might tell you that they were, sore for a week after the last time going to physical therapy. So you have to learn through trial and error. And for our type of clientele, especially the first week or the first visit or the first week, I think in terms of dosing, what we find best is like just starting slow and then kind of ramp it up over time. Mike Chewis says all the time, give them what they want. And so what they might want in terms of home visits or just geriatrics in general is they want maybe some smaller, quick wins, but you don't need to throw the kitchen sink at them.
Yeah, agreed. And that works for it. And the parallels is I'll get hired by companies to help them with marketing or communications or whatever. And they'll want these sweeping demands, right? There was a great social media trend, like, you want this. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, to get this, you need to do this. Oh, I don't want to do that. Like, there's a reason this person is in this problem, is because the rewards that you want is hiding in the work you're not doing. But you can't, right? If you jump in with both feet, and we're 7 levels beyond where they are now, they're not going to be able to see that jump. So you got to take people along for the ride. We're the guide, they're the hero. We need to understand that we got to take a few baby steps, right? Frodo just thought he was bringing the ring to a meeting. He didn't realize he was going to Mordor. But had he said Mordor, he would have been like, I'm not going to Mordor. I'm doing this.
I've never been able to stay awake for that entire movie. I don't think I've ever even made it past the first 5 minutes.
I've not seen any of them. Don't attack me. Don't attack me.
I am a self prescribed science fiction dork. I love those things. I'm not to the level of going to like the cons, like Comic-Con or Sci-Fi Con or whatever, but I will dial up some X-Files or Lord of the Rings or whatever. So anyway, you guys are
tying those loose ends together. Jimmy will appreciate this. I've been watching every piece of content I can about the CEO, and I can't remember his name, of Liquid Death.
Oh, yeah.
How what is it?
I don't know his name.
Okay. How Liquid Death got started, where they came from. Now, the CEO, the founder, he was a marketing guy. And he was getting so sick of getting a job with a large company, them saying, I want you to do these things and have all these grandiose goals. And then when he presents something that's actually creative and unique and interesting, they don't want it. They want the same stuff that everybody else has been doing. And so, Jimmy, you're in that world more. But it's just like patient care. It's like patient comes in, they're like, oh man, I want to be able to run a 5K and I want to throw a football with my grandkids and I want to do all these things. And then you show them what they actually would need to do to achieve those goals, and they don't want any of that.
Nope.
You know, so what ends up happening, and I think this is what therapy suffers from, is everything, pun coming, gets watered down. Like an amazing treatment gets watered down into light conversation because the patient thinks they want this outcome, but they don't want to go through the work and the experience and the sensation of that outcome. But the reason why I say pun coming, water, Liquid Death is a water company. The founder, CEO, he basically said, I'm sick of working for these other large corporations that aren't willing to do anything unique or creative. I want to tap into my true skill set. I want to connect with a real community. He had a history of leaving corporate. He got into building a marketing and selling a alcoholic beverage. And then from there, he stepped into the water market because he was like, all the best marketing is coming from junk food brands, you know, Doritos and Monster and all of these other companies. Why can't we have a healthy drink that's marketed like those guys market the junk food? And that's kind of where the inspiration come from. Then he said he uses the term liquid death because he wants to be death to plastics. He wants to get away from plastic. Aluminum is recyclable multiple times where plastic is not. And he wants to have fun, you know, and he kind of came out of my generation. He talks about being a skater and Tony Hawk and seeing the skateboards. And I totally remember seeing the first Tony Hawk skateboard that I had ever seen, and I wanted it, but it was too expensive. So we got this other off brand that's like a Walmart brand. I can't remember. It starts with a V. I guarantee people who are about my age would remember, huh?
Vision?
No, it was like Vertex or something like that. And everybody else made fun of me because it was a knockoff skateboard. But I was in that world. I used to listen to the Sex Pistols. I used to go out, you know, on Friday, Saturday night and like punk rock. And I just loved it. But that's what he did. And he built this brand to talk to the community that he wanted to talk to. And if we go back through this whole episode, we've got this string that's carrying us through it where it's like, find the smallest viable audience, find your tribe, find your 1,000 true fans who can support your vision, who will jump on board. I mean, how many physical therapy clinics have patients that are so passionate about your brand that they're getting it tattooed on their body? You know, how many patients are so passionate about what you do that they're sharing their own Instagram posts and their own social media, even in their 70s and 80s, because they do have accounts.
Yep.
None of them, because none of us are really doing anything that unique, that's that special or different. No matter how much we want to say that we are, no matter how much we think we are, we're not turning these individuals into true followers, true members of a tight-knit family. So
go to your local supermarket. How many brands of mayonnaise are there? And then go to the hot sauce aisle.
Yeah.
People do not gravitate to the middle, right? What's the most popular ice cream flavor? I don't know the answer, but I'm going to guess it's not French vanilla. It isn't. Like, think about that. I met this guy the other day. How is he? A little vanilla. Well, is that a compliment? No, it is not. So if you want people to follow you, this is where I like plays on words, right? We all want more follow, like and subscribe, follow. Are you leading? Are you giving me something to grab onto? I mean, Liquid Death is a multi-billion-dollar company right now, $1.4 million to their latest evaluation. Do you think it's because of the amount of ions in the water? Do you think it's smart water? Do you think it's alkaline? Like, we all know that that's bunk. Although you're selling something. I'm buy smart water because I'm smart, because I'm different. People, this is where it goes back to Seth Godin. People like us do things like this.
Yeah.
I wear this brand because I need this to say something about me, because what I wear, what I drive, what I drink, what I eat walks into the room faster than you can learn about me. So we all say, don't judge a book by its cover, but not me. I want you to judge me because look how great I am. Liquid Death says something. The fact that it pisses a bunch of people off is the point. We have to ruffle feathers or we can't be on an edge. Vanilla doesn't win.
Right on. And they are being irreverent in terms of like their marketing and their approaches and all that. And also, so Tony just posted recently about Liquid Death with Tony, you should maybe describe it a bit. Instead of them stepping into a $6 million Super Bowl ad, they did something different.
Yeah.
I want to riff on that in terms of, like just revenue generation and growing.
I like actionable strategies, right? So we start talking about Super Bowl ads. I'm sure myself included, most physical therapists are like, well, that's cool, but like, we're never touching that. But it's the anti. So you talk about this and I'll talk about actual strategies I did with a radio station with a $0 budget. So talk about Liquid Death, because I thought it was smart.
Yeah, so the founder CEO shared this story about how they wanted to gain exposure. They were looking at a Super Bowl ad for the most recent Super Bowl. It was a $6 million ad spend for a 30-second spot. And like most innovative companies, he was like, how can we do this better? How can we do it differently? And he was looking at the numbers and he said, we have X many boxes in X many stores. And he was looking at Walmart and other large chain companies. Is like, we get more eyeballs on the sides of our boxes than the Super Bowl gets during the game. So instead of me spending $6 million on a Super Bowl ad that I have no idea what kind of return on the investment, because it's not measurable, I'm going to auction off the side of my box and we're going to see for fun what kind of revenue it generates. Well, they put it on eBay, which is hilarious. I used to do eBay all the time, never use eBay anymore. They ended up with a $500,000 auction. It cost them, he said, cost us about $10,000 to run all of the printing costs and box production and all that stuff. So they netted $490,000. But on top of that, obviously they get the exposure of doing something different, doing something unique, talking about the story that they're selling or auctioning off the side of their box, to build awareness. The winning bid was Coinbase. But yeah, that is just such a different way to approach things. And I think we could learn so many lessons from that.
It's moving value like attention. Go ahead, Dave.
I like it. So it is a different approach. If a company $6 million and they're going to do a Super Bowl ad, you're obviously going to get more eyeballs and probably more customers. You're going to have some amount of growth. Like you said, Tony, I agree that it's hard to track and it's not always predictable or measurable or whatever. But if you do a Super Bowl ad, if Liquid Death did one, it's going to have more people walk into these convenience stores or whatever to grab a new can of Liquid Death. With the ad placement where Coinbase is now on their packaging, I could make the argument by doing that, other than some of the free press that Tony also just mentioned, which is that's actually the win as well. The free win is the free press because they're doing something different. They get that out. But putting Coinbase ads on their boxes, on their packaging, is not going to really increase the amount of customers that are consuming the beverage, other than the free press because they were doing something different.
Yeah, it's image.
Right or wrong? You guys disagree or agree?
I agree, but what I don't know and what hasn't been shared anywhere is, what does 490,000 net profit mean to the company? I don't know. Like, I don't know what their normal profit margin is on selling a case, selling a pallet, selling whatever. So would the increased distribution, if they ran the Super Bowl ad and got new customers, would that outweigh what they get in the $490,000 profit? What are they going to do with the 490? Now, can they take that 490 and leverage it into other media that's going to then grow their audience and their community, like you're mentioning the Super Bowl ad would have made? And I would make the argument, I still can't ever, I love the Super Bowl ads, and this will be a topic for another time, where most ads we fast forward through, most ads we want to skip. People will pay YouTube $10 a month to avoid having to watch an ad. People who don't like football will go and watch the Super Bowl just to watch the commercials. Yeah. So we know amazing commercials could be made. Why commercials choose not to be amazing the other 364 days of the year, I don't understand. Yeah. But I cannot say that I have ever watched a Super Bowl commercial, saw a new ad, product, service, anything, and then go become a customer. Yeah. I don't think I ever have.
Now the packaging on Liquid Death's the ad on their packaging is kind of similar to in the past couple of years where the NBA added on the chest a logo of an external company. I think Coinbase is actually one of the advertisers, and there's some other, including BioFreeze. BioFreeze is on, I forget which team, but wow. the logo of BioFreeze is on one of the NBA teams' left, breast pocket area of the jersey. And initially that got a lot of backlash because everyone's like, the NBA, this multi-billion-dollar company, and they need to put logos on their players. And so every team has like one company logo on the, the left chest area of every jersey of every game. And now with all the pictures on Instagram and all that, these companies get significant long tail branding and advertising. Oh, and now it's the NHL as well, and it's probably going to be every.
Did you hear about this? But this is brilliant, right? Did you hear about the trash patch? So apparently, this company right here that I'm showing on the screen is Priority. It's like it was a waste management company, and now they bought the rights to the top left-hand corner of Detroit Red Wings jersey, but they called it the trash patch, right? Because of course, like this happened in Europe and other sports before it came to America. No, we would never desecrate our jerseys with these patches, right? The Red Wings get this Priority company's logo on there, and then they promptly go on an 8-game losing streak. They were doing well, and they got so it's like the curse of the trash patch. But Priority sort of doesn't care, right? Because they're getting their logo absolutely everywhere now. Now it's on ESPN because they're focusing on it, right? This is all an exchange of attention. Like, look what did you guys hear the news about Mr. Beast?
No.
He's got an Amazon trivia show now where the top prized is $5 million, but they are leveraging the fact that people know Mr. Beast, and the Amazon is saying we need people to show up, and $5 million is a record-breaking level of a prize for a trivia show. This is about attention. They are getting 20, 50, $100 million worth of attention, and they're giving away 5. Like watch 1980s Wheel of Fortune. The winners walked away with like $1,200, and that was mind-blowing money back then. And now it's 5 figures, right? Jeopardy, people are walking away with 5 figures every night, and guy goes on a run, woman goes on a run for 10, 12 nights. Like, it's because these things, they pay attention, that the product is, I mean, look at Price is Right. It's a commercial with a bunch of commercials in it. What? But because it grabs your attention, it makes sense. Do you want a real life story about how I manipulated this?
Yes.
Annual revenue for the radio station I ran was about $5 million. Our budget for marketing every year for an organization that marketed was $0 every year. So if Jimmy wanted to do something, I had to be creative. I hated this at the time. I love it now because all I am is I ask, like, what's your goal? And then I just run along and go get ideas, pretending I have a $0 budget, and then we could amp it up. So Coors Light came to us every year and said, what are you going to do? Essentially, they dangle money and they go, this is how much we have to spend in this market between all these radio stations and TV stations. And then you come to us on pitch day, you pitch, we decide what slice of the pie you get. So I was the pitcher for my radio station, right? And I would go in with the sales rep. So here's what I pitched. The radio station, so what's your goal? Males 21 to 49. Okay, gosh. What do males 25, 34 want? They want to hang around with females. We want to put them in bars, right? We want to put them together. Males chase females. We want to get them together. So we know your audience. Start with who? So with a $0 budget, I said the radio station was 97.9X in Northeast Pennsylvania. So I said, let's play with this. Let's liquid death this. This is before liquid death. So I said the campaign is called We're looking for your next ex-girlfriend. I mean, come on. I spoke to every 25 to 34-year-old man. Come on, right? You're looking for your next ex-girlfriend. So here was the deal. But I need females to show up for this. And what did females want back then before there were these fancy camera phones that took great pictures? So I contracted with a local photographer and then got 10 bars to host bar nights over a month and a half. And I said, we're going to do photo shoots at these bars, professional photographer, windscreen, background, again, before all this camera equipment and stuff like that, because we're looking for our next ex-girlfriend. We traded for advertising dollars a billboard on Interstate 81 with 50,000 eyeballs every single day. And I said, the winner who gets the most votes, the female, gets her picture on a billboard, and you are for 12 months our next ex-girlfriend. We'll bring you out to events, and you're going to be our promo girl. So we got their attention because we understood what they wanted. We understood what the guys wanted. The guys wanted to be around the girls. So we went around to like 10 or 12 bar events. The bars loved it because they were jammed. Some girls came to multiple events to increase their odds of getting more pictures taken. Our website saw a big, huge hit. Coors Light was on it was their campaign. Be the Coors Light. And then we did funny t-shirts, which is I'm your next ex-girlfriend. That was the girl version. The male version of the shirt was I'm looking for my next ex-girl. It was a pickup line shirt. It could be used 6 weeks, 6 years. There are still some floating around. So we understood the game. So I put all these things together and said, here's the cost. And Coors Light was like, this is it. You understood the game. But this goes back to everything we talked about today. This is an exchange of attention. Time is money, right? Attention is money. This is Gary Vee's next book, which I don't think it's out yet, which is You Are Day Trading Attention. I need you to understand that. And what the CEO of Ford gets by doing that, even if he never talks about Ford on the show, they win because they got attention, and they're probably able to do something with that attention, right? So there's your commodity. There's your raw material. Can you do something with it? I was able to do it with Coors Light because they just wanted to be in front. They didn't want someone else to have that idea because it looked too damn tasty. So we did that for about 4 or 5 years. Maxim Magazine, actually back when Maxim Magazine was a thing, they bought into that too. Get a national advertiser to buy in on a local campaign in Northeast Pennsylvania. That's insane. It doesn't make any sense until it does.
And speaking about day trading attention, we have the most live viewers right now on the show. So shout out you guys for tuning in and obviously, hopefully enjoying what we're talking about. Let's jump over to parting shots.
Parting shots.
Jimmy brought up Maxim Magazine. I remember being a kid looking at Maxim. It was like, I had never seen anything like that before. If you want patients to think about you in a new way, you have to do something different.
Yeah.
I don't know how I top that. That's really good. It's just very succinct. Kick it over. Let's say parting shot. I'll say going back to the whole CI and student placement situation. The example of Justin Cyber with offering, like, literally bought a multifamily, I don't know, 2 or 4 or something floors or whatever. And I know not every owner can do this, but there's another example of being different. So he offers value. He's doing something differently. No other practice is probably doing something like that. They just assume like every student is also going to take out extra loans for that apartment or wherever if they're doing a rotation somewhere else. So it's another example of doing something differently, and you can leverage that if you're bringing some of that extra value to the table.
I agree. My parting shot is going to be safe is dangerous, everybody. Remember that. If you want to be just like everybody else, it feels safe, right? But indecision, not making a move, is a decision, right? If you're crossing a highway and it feels, I don't know, do I keep going? The cars are coming. Do I go back? I'll just stand still.
Spelling here.
Oh, safe is dangerous. Sorry. I can't.
We're live, maybe this is live.
That's right.
Safe is dangerous.
There we go.
Safe is dangerous as well. If you're crossing a highway and you're like, I don't know if I should keep going or go back because there's cars coming, I'll just stand still. That feels safe. You're going to get run over. I'm telling you that. I know it feels like a blankie, like it's warm and safe, but by not doing that, it's actually the most dangerous thing you can do. I'm not saying to go out and blow all your money on an ad campaign. That's not what I'm saying. My question is, what is your unique value? What is your unique selling position, your USP? And then over-communicate that. Communicate that in ways that gets people to pay attention, spend time. Those are transactional phrases, people. Pay attention, spend time. Are you giving people something worth paying attention to? If it's mayonnaise, listen, Hellmann's has that covered, my friends. Go be the next Sriracha. Where's the liquid death of Sriracha? I would say Sriracha was the thing a couple of years ago, but there's room for it because vanilla, that ain't on the edge. Gentlemen, thanks so much for the time. Look at it. People paying attention. Write in if you have a suggestion for this. If you're like, Nutting, I wonder what their absolute garbage take would be on this. I've got garbage takes for days. Go ahead, fire it at us in the comments. Thanks so much, guys.